everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Found It, Fetched It. This week, I'm joined by Dr. Scott Miller, one of the UK's best-known TV vets, and Adem Fehmi, a respected canine behaviourist. We're going to be talking all about the hidden dangers of travelling with unrestrained dogs in cars. Hi, Dr. Scott. Hi, Adam. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having us.
The LWDG support women who train and work gun dogs all across the world, and safe travel is a huge part of what our members do every single day. We tend to take our dogs long distances to do the things we love with them. So the dog spends quite a lot of time in the car, probably more than a pet would. I know the research we are chatting about today has highlighted some pretty shocking statistics about unrestrained dogs in cars. When I received the information yesterday and I went through it, I was really shocked. Like the numbers, I had no idea they were that high. So, Dr. Scott, this new research is pretty shocking, isn't it? And in your experience as a vet, why do you think that dog owners underestimate the dangers of travelling without restraint?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me part of your lovely podcast, and hello to all of your wonderful dog-loving listeners. This Tavo Pet Surgery survey is something that I think is a sort of seminal moment, really, to just highlight the importance of restraining animals whilst traveling. As a vet, of course, I see the ramifications of people not restraining their animals. They can be really significant. The injuries that are suffered as a result are in some cases catastrophic. There can be everything from dental issues. I've seen pictures where there's been dogs' teeth embedded in dashboards. Fractured limbs are very common as well. Of course, they can be jettisoned out of the car entirely, and certainly this survey has shown that up to 80,000 pets every year are impacted by some level of injury as a result of being in a car accident unrestrained. So it's certainly something that I think needs to be highlighted. And when, certainly here in the UK, where it's against the law to have your animal unrestrained in a car, very few people actually are aware of that. And 59% of motorists still have travelled with their pets unrestrained. So I think it's a little bit of a blind spot for animal lovers when it comes to the safety of their animals. And we are compromising that when we travel with them without restraining them.
Yeah, it can be really easy for us, can't it? We get our children in the car, we click clank every time. I can remember that TV sort of promotion. And then you might like pop the dog on their lap, or you pop the dog in the footwell because you think, I'm not going far, it's not really important. But when I was reading through the research you sent over to me, like even thinking about like the weight of a small cocker, what it becomes in an accident and how it sort of acts like a projectile missile, I was like, wow, people really probably aren't thinking of it in that way, about how the dog could not only get hurt themselves, but how they could hurt others in the car. Adam, from a sort of behaviour perspective, what do you think some of the most common reasons that owners give for like just letting their dogs ride like this?
I think sometimes there's an element of naivety. If we're looking at your community, some of your community, the gun dog world, these dogs could be very excited because they're going out to hunt or work. So they might get anxious and they might be off-road in these situations. So we're taking dogs out to woodland and they're loose because we may not even put a seatbelt on some folk in those situations. I've seen scenes like that where dogs at lunchtime are loose, round traffic, pickups, that sort of thing. So we've got to be aware of what we're doing with our dogs and think about how we travel with them safely, whether we're on a competition, agility day or shoot day, going to the vets, for example. But I think naivety is a big thing for me. People are not thinking for the dog. They've got their bottom in the seat, they put their strap on, and we might not think how the dog is traveling in the car. And it's very important that we do think about how our pets travel safely.
Do you think the risk increases dramatically when there are multiple dogs in the car?
Well, of course, yes, because it's sort of bouncing around. I think one of the elements of this survey is about the driver, of course, having their focus distracted by their pets. 40% of motorists have been distracted by their dog while driving. So if you've got two variables as a scientist, you know that there's more potential for that. So that's certainly a cause for concern when we're in a car. Just realize the potential issues that can occur when we're not putting our safety first. And I suppose for many of us, we recall the days of the 80s when there were seatbelts that were all of a sudden implemented, and we're like, oh, what are these weird things? But we all know that that's science backed and been proven to show that if you are in a crash, you're far more likely to survive. So it's shocking, really, when you think we're in 2025, and even now we're sort of not doing it, even though by law, it's certainly in the UK at least, you should be doing it. It's quite shocking. And when we think of age groups as far as who would do the right thing or the wrong thing, we know the younger generations are actually quite a conservative bunch, and they do tend to follow the rules. And yet this Tavo survey has showed the opposite. So for example, 43% of motorists will let their dog sit on a lap when they're driving. Shockingly dangerous. But that rises to 76% of motorists in the 18 to 24 year age group, the ones with least amount of experience when it comes to being behind the wheel. So, and then even further, when you're thinking of why they're doing those things, 60% think the pet feels at ease. 38% feels like it's safer for the pet. That's unbelievable. And that 32% say they enjoy having the pet there on there. But that doesn't actually put the safety of the animal first. And certainly Adam is here to give advice about anxiety and pets when it comes to travel. For me, as a vet who has to deal with the consequences, I would say I'd far rather your pet be restrained in an appropriate fashion and avoid the anxiety of being in a vet clinic for many days on end with the injury sustained as a result of not restraining them.
And I was going to add there, Joe, when we're out with working dogs, actually, you do see people behaving differently. So, for example, on a shoot day with a gun dog, we might be seeing people putting multiple dogs in cars. We can get interpack issues. It's like putting an unknown person in your car. You wouldn't do it. You know where they want to go, who they are. But in these working situations, we might be seeing people putting them all in together. So that can increase stress. It could be warm on that day. Having products like the Tavo products means a safe place for our dogs. We've got the ISOFix there. Our little cocker could sit lovely in one of those, and then we could maybe have another dog in the boot, and we can keep dogs separate. So we've got to respect the dog's space within the working scene, but also make sure we get it to the shoot, the agility competition, the show, safely, right? And if we're going to be traveling a lot more with these sorts of dogs, it makes perfect sense to look at the products such as Tavo, where we're pioneering in that traveling field and making sure that we're setting our dogs up and the people that are working their dogs and enjoying their dogs well whilst they travel.
Yeah, you touch upon some really difficult points, especially like we have a large percentage of our members who have pet gun dogs that will never go onto an estate. And obviously they have to take the safety very seriously. But then when you go onto an estate, like you said, you may have like a beaters wagon where there's 20 people and 40 dogs, and we are bundled in the back, for want of a better word. And we don't really think about that because you're going from one drive to another. And there is that sort of naivety of, oh, it's only 3 minutes, or it's only this. And we step away from our normal behavior because we're in a very, unusual situation. We touched a little bit there upon like anxiety with dogs, like using crates, using harnesses. We do have a lot of dogs, I think, across the UK who get stressed by any type of restraint because they've never known it. Are there any ways, Adam, we can sort of desensitize them gradually to being quite happy traveling this way?
Yes, definitely. So we want to be able to set our dogs up at a lower level initially. So it might mean no engine on, giving positive reinforcers in the vehicle, maybe even working around the vehicle for a dog that's really scared of the vehicle already. We want to make sure that we're training our dogs well as well. So we could use positions like down or flat. Make sure the space that you put your dog into is suitable for the breed, the behaviors the dog's showing. If that dog's anxious at home, it's probably going to be anxious in the car. Okay, so it's a moving object, and as well as small space, for example. So a lot of dogs have separation issues, struggle if an owner goes out the car. And we talked about a bit like the shoot days, the beaters wagons. These could be totally new concepts for the dog. The dog might change its behavior from going to a pet supermarket because we're now going on a shoot. So that dog knows there's going to be hunting, work, and that could make the dog more stressed, right? The owner might go off for 11s, as you know it, or a coffee or lunch, and the dog could be heightened with its excitement because it knows there's game around. Whereas another day in the car, that dog might just relax. It's not hunting, it's not working. So think about the changes that are going to come for the working dog there, or the dog that's going to a show or an agility competition, for example. But there's lots we can do. Make it positive. Use food enrichment toys. Exercise is good as well. Obviously, think of the heat, but can we get some of that anxious energy gone earlier in the day before the dog goes in the vehicle? Set the scene up. So practice around the car, even in the home situation. Can your dog relax off you while you're at home? If it can't, it's not likely to relax when you go out, if you see what I mean, with the car door or a front door. And make sure we're nice and calm ourselves too. These are some tips to think about.
Yeah, and they're all incredible tips because, like you said, the dogs we work with, they are so driven by what they do, whether that's a real life scenario or us just training, that
Yes.
from the minute we pick up a dummy and a whistle, they are like, right, I'm on, what am I doing?
Exactly.
So we have to work with that, absolutely. Dr. Scott, what sort of injuries could somebody expect from an unrestrained dog, even a low speed, so that we can really sort of hit home to people listening? Look, just because you're going 5 miles an hour down a country lane, just take a moment to clip them in.
Yes. Well, I suppose, would you do the same thing with your children? Would be the first question. And the answer is no. I don't think any of us feel comfortable now even driving for a moment without having the seatbelt on and having that click sound. So the same should be applied to the pets. But if we look at the physics of the situation, if you are driving at 30 miles an hour, then your animal, when you stop suddenly, will be propelled forward at 30 to 60 times their own body weight. So it does mean that a pet becomes a projectile. Now, whether that means that they fly through the window, they smash into the dashboard, and there's severe injuries, potentially death, that can come from those. But also, if it happens to hit one of the members of the car, one of the passengers potentially, or even the driver, and the impact and the injury that could cause to them as well. So it's a very serious issue. And I do feel like it's a eureka moment where, when you're reading through and you're hearing these numbers of this Tavo survey, you go like, what have I been doing? Why would I put their safety at such a low level compared to the rest of the family? It's just not okay. And I think when we sort of step back and realize, look, we can all make mistakes, but every day is a school day. I think this is a good lesson learned, and hopefully moving forward, everyone will change their behaviors in order to ensure that their canine companions are as safe as the rest of the family.
I will add into the show notes the statistics you shared with me, because I think them in themselves will make people think, oh my God, I definitely need to think twice. But we touched upon the fact that it's against the law, but there's also huge fines as well, isn't it? It's just not a case of like, oh, you're going to get a smack on the wrist for it. The police take it very seriously as well, don't they?
Yes, you absolutely can get fined. And that is an element that people should be concerned about. But certainly when it comes to finance, I would say there's more concern about your legal exposure if you are found to be distracted, or if your dog has impacted your ability to drive and what effect that might have. But also the cost of the veterinary bills of getting your animal sorted out if they have suffered with an injury. But I think, finance aside, because I think many of your listeners would have the feeling, of course, like many people, that the money isn't so much the issue. This is about the fact that their companion is exposed to injury that you could prevent. And how would you feel if that did happen on your watch? You've got this really well-trained animal that you have got this close bond with, and you forge that over lots of time together. That moment of a lapse of responsibility is just simply not worth it. And when the Highway Code does dictate in the UK that you should be having them restrained, that's one thing. But also looking at the market and seeing what's out there when it comes to properly crash tested products. There actually isn't anything out there but the pet protection systems provided by Tavo. So I would certainly suggest having a look at those, because they're the ones that we can say are assured to have been tested in those most rigorous of ways. But more than anything, I think it is just appreciating that this might be something that up until now I've maybe lapsed a few times, and that's okay. Let's not let that lapse happen any longer.
You touched there upon the fact that our dogs, a driver could be distracted.
Mhm.
It can be very hard, kind of from a behavior perspective, to keep a nervous dog or an excited dog even still in one place. So do you recommend we look at something more like a car crate in this case, or would you suggest, we clip them in? Because some dogs are quite happy. You clip them in and they'll sit down and they'll just be quite happy in that position. But where we've got dogs who've got sort of this high energy or high anxiety, are we better off with a crate system where they're not restrained?
So
What I would say is certainly I think having them properly controlled within a pet protection system is the way forward, and they're perfectly designed with padded walls, etc., for that particular situation. And also they're put in with an ISOFIX, which again is the highest quality of pet safety. I think being able to ensure that the animal is safe when they're traveling on any journey is just so important. And when you're looking at the fact also that I would say that people allow the dogs still to have their dogs heads out to windows. I know a lot of dogs may sort of be interested in that particular behavior, but it's a really dangerous thing to do. And again, in the younger age group, a higher number of people are doing that. 43% of the 18 to 24-year age group are allowing their dogs to put their heads out to windows. And why do they do it? Fresh air, 70% of people, 43% say it puts their pet at ease. But I would say the anxiety of the situation that you mentioned, I'd much rather the safety be put forward, because I think that's an issue of physical injury, and the anxiety that they'll suffer being in a vet practice, being treated for a fractured leg for multiple days, if not weeks, far outweighs the anxiety of being trained to get used to some level of restraint.
And Adam, we're working with bigger dogs as well. Like, the
Yes.
breeds that we deal with, they tend to be
Yes.
the bigger dogs, the heavier dogs, that they're most people's pets. What do you think we should do with regards to, like, we could be carrying 3 Labradors or 5 Labradors. How can we sort of like work with that?
So it's important to know your individual dog. And I think that comes back to your question that you just gave to Scott. Make sure you practice. If we're using a crate in the car, we might have used the crate at home. If we've got, say, the seatbelt idea, we might just be letting the dog sit on a blanket with the seatbelt, and we might fade to a product like the Tavo products where we can get them in and out the car even. They connect really easy. We can practice that at home, and we might have multiple dogs going into a bigger crate or a grid behind at the back there. But make sure the dogs know each other like you would with people. You wouldn't put a random child in with my child. They'll know each other, know what's going on, you explain it. We don't always do that with dogs when we're working them. And it might just be dogs moving around in the back of a pickup, for example, in the working scene, or even on a quad bike, for example. So the products that can move around and go into different vehicles and different scenarios, whether it's a shoot day, an agility competition, these are going to be useful. And think about your dog's physiology, coat length, life stage. These are all going to be important factors when we're considering how we put our dogs into vehicles. I noticed also that when your dogs, don't forget, they're going to be wet, they're going to be tired. It might be warm if we're on a grouse moor in the summer, for example. So we want products that have good airflow, such as the Tavo stuff, and making sure that we are giving a dog a safe place to rest, recoup, and then we can maybe have lunch. Okay, and these products can be shut. We can leave doors and windows open, keep an eye on ours, and maybe even put another dog next to that dog if it's tolerant and flexible enough. But it's important that we as owners understand the individual dogs that we're putting in together, and we set our car up appropriately for however many dogs we've got.
Fabulous. Finally, because I've taken up quite a lot of your time and I do massively appreciate you doing this with us, for both of you, if you could leave every dog owner with just one message about traveling safely, what would it be?
So I would just go as simply as, if you love your dog and you see them as part of the family, then just apply the same travel safety rules as you would the kids or yourself. And that means that you are properly restrained. So, our animals do need to be able to be restrained, because it can lead to severe injury, and the numbers speak for themselves. And I think once you sort of have a little bit of a look at this TARVO campaign and the research alongside it, it is quite shocking. And we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all fallible. But I think moving forward, we can correct some of those behavioral mistakes and just restrain your dog. Make sure that they're protected, because, they give us unconditional love. We just need to make sure that we give them the safety that they deserve.
And I would say, think for your dog, advocate for your dog, be responsible. We don't think when we get in a car we're going to crash, but in the sad cases or unfortunate cases that we do, we need to make sure our dog's set up right, whether it be fire services getting the dog out, we not be able to do it. Is our setup good? Is it easy for people to work with? Can we take it to different contexts? That's the sort of thing I would be recommending.
For anyone listening today that wants some more information about the campaign and also the products supplied by the wonderful people at TARVO, then do check out tarvopets.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott and Adam, for sharing your experiences today. This is such an important conversation. I know that everything that you shared will absolutely help our community to feel more confident that they are traveling safely with dogs, or to make some slight amendments if they need to. We're going to be putting together some resources to support owners in making simple, practical changes based on the sort of conversation we've had today. And hopefully the changes will help keep dogs secure and calm on the road. I really do appreciate your time and all your work to help keep dogs safe. I genuinely, when I got the email yesterday, I was like, yes, this is more of the conversations we need to be having. So thank you again for your time, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Jo.